Dominic, first of all, have you approached the state in any way to collaborate with their data agencies? And speak to me a little bit about what you said towards this agency for national missing people.
Yeah, so the National Crime Agency is like the intelligence, or I say central intelligence for all the UK. So, and I would love Donna to put her input on this because I couldn't resolve some things that I found. So the National Crime Agency, they have statistics for all the UK on missing people. They break it down by demographic. They highlight some of the difficulties in collecting the data. They don't break it down by region, but this is why I've tried to request the individual, like the Met Police and all these different agencies across the UK. I try to request them directly the information. The National Crime Agency do make it known that some of them don't collect ethnicity and gender, and it's all very, very different. But and maybe this is a question for you, Donna. The Office of National Statistics is one thing. That's the UK's section for statistics. Knife crime statistics sits there, but missing people statistics doesn't sit there. It sits with the National Crime Agency. Do you have an idea how that works and what sits with the Office of National Statistics and what sits with the National Crime Agency? The National Crime Agency statistics are not robust, but the Office of National Statistics are, and that's what Parliament uses. And it didn't make sense to me how you got so much data on knife crime, but when it comes to missing people, you don't really have a lot of data.
Well, you don't make money from missing people.
You said it.
Somebody's making money.
Somebody's making money.
That's another conversation.
There's a whole nother ADPAC show.
But it's actually not, because Gwenton is going to give us clarity about that with modern slavery, which is a huge conversation and a component that is overlooked by our community. And as they say, exposure leads to expansion. So we're going to see if we can get Gwenton in now. Afternoon, sir.
Bless indeed.
So we are going to get a little bit of your history, but because I know that you are so informed about where the money is, what we wanted to speak about is why the intelligence isn't connected. So Dominic spoke about them having the National Office of Statistics having so much data on so-called knife crime, but there's no data on the missing people. That is down to the Crime Intelligence Agency. Now, we had a conversation that we're not going to go too much into about modern slavery, but I'd like you to give your perspective as to why it's such a disjointed system, understanding your expertise. And then following that, please tell us a little bit about your history and the initiatives you've created.
All right, so the first thing I would say is it might seem as if there's no data, but there is data that won't be shared with the ordinary person, because the team that will be dealing with that won't want to share that unless it's organized crime or other agencies that will have access to that. Because what we have to understand is missing people also touch on exploitation and counter-terrorism and other stuff, and also immigration as well. Because a lot of the young people that are said to be missing, people that have got no access to public funds, that might not have their immigration status in play at the time. So there is data there, but it's about who could actually access that data. Yeah.
I think Dean disappeared.
Fingers and thumbs, my apologies. So I think what we're getting a snapshot there is where we have also been very disjointed and we don't have a national representation. There's been room for them to actually isolate these particular statistics and the things that are happening. And this is why when we were at the mayor's office, a couple of Fridays ago, we called for the creation of the role, the African Caribbean Liaison Officer, to shadow every single London Assembly meeting that the mayor attends, so that we as a community are actually informed of every piece of data, every piece of legislation, in going from planning all the way to the police intelligence reports, so that we as a community are in a position to protect ourselves and the wider community by being able to deal with us in our criminal elements and in every single civic area of life that happens in London. Let's really investigate as to why we are kept in the dark, because it's been happening it's actually been happening for perpetuity. We've been here 70 years. And if you think about every ethnicity, the fact that we still identify as a coloring crayon, so that everybody else can color outside the lines and leave us behind, just doesn't make any sense to me. It's never made any sense to me when we are an ethnicity that is clearly identifiable. Everybody knows what the African diaspora looks like, but we use the colloquialism black when we get into a room. I'd just like to explain to everybody that if I called you Cherub as a nickname, if I actually wrote a check, you couldn't cash it. I have to write your name where you are legally identifiable as your name. Because if I write Cherub on a check because I find you cute and it just comes to mind, you can't cash the check. And this is exactly where we are as an ethnicity, still some 100 years from the colonial outposts, identifying ourselves as a color, which is like a nursery exercise. And we've realized, but in our collective organization, I think we're realizing it more and more. I would love for you to speak a little bit towards that, Gwenton, if you've got the reception. And it seems that the forces just don't want us to connect in that way.